Okay. Okay. So, is
You
it,
want to do roll call?
yeah, is there somebody here that will do roll call? Oh, Rosalina? Oh,
Thank you.
Hi, on it today.
I am Daly City,
Glenn Sylvester, present.
okay, Hillsborough. County of San Mateo
Yep, we're here.
and San Bruno.
Rico Medina, present, along with Glenn, present. I don't know what happened.
That's it.
Well, for a former San Diego State alumnus, you know, that was very well done.
Oh, thank you.
Should that go in our performance review?
Well, we're both graduated from the same school, so.
Mhm.
We'll turn to public comments now. I don't know if we have a Zoom hookup here. Oh, we do, yeah, okay.
So, public comments? Hearing none? We will move on. We did not receive any written comments either.
Okay, regular agenda, first item, number 3, discussion of DEM staffing needs.
We need to do the approval, the action to set the agenda
yeah.
and approval of the minutes.
Yeah, let's do that. So we need a motion for approval of the minutes for May 18th.
Glenn Sylvester, motion. Second.
Okay, without objection, we'll just approve that. And then approval to set the agenda.
Glenn Sylvester. Second.
Good. Without objection, we'll approve it. We'll set the agenda. And then we'll move to the regular agenda. Item number 3, discussion of DEM staffing needs. And, okay. So is there a handout?
Yes, sir. It's, it looks like
What looks like that, okay.
that could be it.
Okay. Do you wanna lead us in a conversation?
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
this, or-
Yeah, so, we shared with you our vision, DEM's vision, and, oh, yes. And the field of emergency management is not what it used to be 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. It's been status quo here at the county. By county, I mean the operational area, and we want to change that status quo. What that means is that we invest in not just the response part, but the alert and warning, which is very critical to the response part. As we're doing our, as we are looking at all hazard evacuation planning, we're looking at alert and warning very critically. And we did a survey of the counties around us. And pretty much every county has a minimum of 1 person that does alert and warning. Some people have up to 3 people that do alert and warning. So having looked at what we have and what we should have, based on all the research, one of the critical things we need to do is actually create a holistic alert and warning program. And I don't mean SMC alert. I mean the WIA, I mean, that's wireless emergency alerts. I mean, IPAWS. I mean, the tsunami sirens. These are things that we talked about last meeting that we want to basically create a program around where we can dedicate an individual that creates templates, creates how the program is sustained, get funding for more things that we need to get, whether it's grant funding, because there's grant funding out there to do some of this work. And so that is the first position that I am requesting. And the second position I'm requesting is a community outreach coordinator. This position would basically reach out to CBOs, your monolingual communities, people with access and functional needs, and really understand what their needs are and actually prepare them. The grassroots movements of preparing those folks to be ready before, during, and after disaster. And during would be, how do they tie into resources? It's a significant ask. I understand that it's a very significant ask. It's gonna cost you know, 338K a year. And I understand where the cities are right now as well. So there's many ways to cut the pie, and I'm looking for you all to give me your suggestions. I have suggestions on how we can cut the pie and how we can make sure that the funding happens if you all wish to move this along.
Okay. Mr. Vice President.
No, and I know, and Glenn and I, some of our cities, because we were talking about dispatch
Yeah.
and so everything.
Yeah.
And I understand, so, I just don't know, I'd like to hear how to cut the pie.
Yeah.
Because I think, honestly, what we're finding, like, Adam's office over here, they want more money from us. For dispatch and all of this, we have reserves, but then we've really tapped into reserves a lot lately. So I don't know if we should just maybe, but maybe I don't want to say
So
that.
currently we have 1.3 million in reserves, okay? So there's many ways of cutting the pie. And the first way to cut the pie, you're not gonna like, which is okay. And that is actually, that's okay. Is actually, the proposed changes will cost the cities additional money. On average, each city will pay about $8,000 on average. But realistically, some cities are paying $400 for it, and some cities are paying 23K for it, for both positions.
What's the next option?
I'm getting there.
Sorry.
So I think there's a couple other options. We can use some of the funding that's coming from SFO, and then some of the other funding to, like, we have a lot of salary savings because we haven't funded position. And maybe we try this pilot for 2 years or 3 years, see how it goes. And then if at that point in time, things look better, we continue funding it. These are gonna be unclassified positions, so they can go away at any time. And I'm open to that. The other things we can do is get a management, like a management fellow, like, so it's someone that's recently just graduated from getting their master's. It would cost a little less. It would be about 109K fully funded for each of the positions instead of the 169 fully funded. So there's many ways to cut the pie.
Trudy, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah,
Is it
absolutely.
Okay, Supervisor?
Of course.
You mentioned the monies from SFO.
Yep.
Do you have a sense of how much comes in annually from SFO that is not encumbered?
Yeah, so about 410K comes from SFO on a yearly basis. That can go up or down. And that is, again, not a guaranteed source of funding, and we need to be very considerate of that, right? This is not. I'm suggesting that we actually fund this position for a year or two, see what the return on interest is for us, right? What will these positions do for us? And then come back and reevaluate how to move, if we want to keep these positions, how to keep them or how to cut them. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. There is funding out there that we can get if we show that we want to make progress and if we want to work towards this. But I can't do that without having positions.
Is the 410 you mentioned, that's unencumbered that comes in from SFO? It's not designated to other things currently?
Some of it is designated to other things, but there is enough monies in there for us to do this for 2 years.
Okay.
So again, we can't vote on this. I want to have this conversation. And I want to see how we move this or not move this. And if you all think that this is something of importance to your citizens.
Let me know any thoughts. I know you do, but.
Yeah, I do. And it's just basically trying to get the lay of the land still, so.
I can share with you what I say about all this. As I say to you, tell Adam that you have this 330,000, is that what it is?
338.
338 nut. And you want to explore with the county manager ways to get that funded. One of them might be looking at that Measure K list that you gave me the other day with all those 142 or whatever it is. Measure K.
Yeah, we had, for us, I think 13 were recommended for funding.
Yeah, and I know there was one in there for emergency services,
Yep.
for some small amount of money.
Yeah.
What was that amount? Do you remember?
So we have, we had about 3.5 million total for emergency preparedness. And one of the items was, I'll just give a little background, that one of the items was an emergency services coordinator for the coast side, and that was recommended for funding. And then I'll just mention one or two other things, is that as part of trying to really strengthen the EM, the county has put in 2 earthquake coordinator positions, which Shruti has, I think, already identified folks to fill, and has actually authorized an assistant director position for the unit. So there's some additional positions coming online shortly to try to help bring this all together. So the county's making investment already for a number of positions.
So I have a quick question. How does the council, the people that are here today or the bigger group,
Yep.
how would they know about all these, all the positions that you've put in here offline to us? How would we
I think the
know that?
we should make sure that we're alerting you to that at each of these emergency services council meetings. And I think we did talk about the earthquake coordinator positions and announced that at the last one. The assistant director position, I think we talked about too. And then the other one just happened on the Tuesday of last week. And so that's just sort of the first opportunity to share this.
So how many, not including this, how many people have we added?
The county's invested in if the board makes that Measure K allocation on Tuesday, it'll be 4 additional people
And then plus
through county
these
funding.
2.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay,
so the county would be picking up 4, and I think the thought was to, see if the JPA was interested in picking up the other 2.
Well, the thing is, we don't want the cities to have an impact in this regard. I'm talking for myself now, not for Gallagher, but he's trying to negotiate this increased, well, about the fire dispatch or whatever it's called. And just kind of hate to see us, go, well, that wasn't the whole story, Rico. We got another little request over here. So I'd be in favor of trying to figure this out with the county manager and Measure K monies and taking that Measure K item that they've requested, which has to do with AI and Ladris or Hadris, what is it?
Ladris,
Ladris? How much was that?
I think that is about a $500,000
There you go. I
annually.
cancel the Ladris thing and put it into this, and that's that, it's done.
But I think we can we have this was one of the additional ways to cut the pie. I'm gonna jump in your mind. We actually had identified another one that we would propose to supplement and that was about 130,000 annually. But if the direction from this group is try to get all this done without any impact to the cities, without tapping into the money from SFO, then I think we still have flexibility to make some of those adjustments in the Measure K allocations.
And is one of those positions that 130, is that a grant writer?
One of the positions that is not yet fully approved, but has been indicated as likely to be approved on top of the ones that I already described by the county,
Right.
is for a grant writer and a grant manager. And
Yeah, I'm not so I don't know about the grant manager and grant writer. It seems like some layers in there that maybe don't need to be right off, but I am convinced that they need a grant writer like now. Because then this can attract other monies potentially, and without it, we're just relying on the good doc here to stay up all night and write grants, which isn't right. So I'd say just put the whole kit and caboodle together and ask county executive to figure out how to slice it. No, it's 4:30.
You guys start early? I'm just checking.
No, we started right on time.
Oh, you started at 4. Is that 4?
Yes.
How did I end up with 4:30? So sorry. It's all right.
It happens. So that's my 2 cents on it, is these positions. I don't like the word coordinator, but that's just my opinion. But I do think that work is important and needs to be done. The grants writer, I think, is on the critical path. And then I would just work with the county manager's office to try to find. I mean, there is money there in that Measure K business.
Yep.
Somebody else is gonna be pissed off, but you know, Rico doesn't have a request in, so we're okay. That's my thought. The positions are needed. Don't affect the cities for the increase in cost. Do it as a 1 or 2 or 3 year pilot. Figure out the measures of success if we're moving the needle right now instead of waiting till the end. And then move, turn her loose and give her some goals and hold her accountable with these investments and go from there.
Okay, I think we can do that, and it may require a motion from you at the Measure K allocation on Tuesday, but we can talk about what that is. So I think we can fit that
Happy to make motions.
in. And waves,
It's the
yeah.
easiest thing I do.
Okay,
How does that sound to everybody? Director, is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
So,
Good night. Can I weigh in?
of course,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I like the jacket.
I can get to one.
Been waiting.
No, this is a different jacket.
That's why he's hanging out
Yeah, this
all
isn't
the
the one
time.
from them. This isn't the one from them.
Okay. Basically, I felt a little bit uneasy in the sense of coming to make a decision. I don't know what we have now. Who's on staff, who does what? And I think that's what you kind of alluded to.
Yeah.
It would help me understand, definitely. It's a unique idea. We need to have someone for the alert and warning. We need someone for community outreach. It's a marvelous idea, and I think, definitely we do need these folks. The slicing up of the pie, I'm a numbers person, and when you said anywhere from 400 to 23,000 each, a lot of cities are in a structural deficit at this time. And I would like to find out more. You made mention about tapping other resources, which I'm sure could include grants that are out there. And Supervisor, you were right on the nose. If anyone we should hire is a grant writer. I wouldn't expect you, Doctor, as Supervisor said, to write these grants. I mean, you've got other bigger fish to fry, so I'm in definite agreement with that. But anything that the county can do to help the cities would definitely be a welcome addition. You made mention about 1.3 million in reserves. What do you do with those reserves? Or do they just sit there?
So those reserves are there for a rainy day. They can be used at the discretion of this, not this committee, sorry, the Emergency Services Council as a whole. We would take the reserves, use them specifically to plug holes.
Absolutely.
And in the past, things were bought with them, right? Like for, Dawn had asked for the 2 cars, which we've gone out over and over again, and no one's bidding on that RFP. But those are the things that we would use the reserves for. And you'll see that that the landscape of DEM is changing as we are not only now bringing in more grants, you'll see that a lot of this money now sits on the ESC side of the budget because it affects the whole county, including the cities. Michael will come and present the budget, and I'm happy to share more about that, but it's at your discretion.
Okay, so basically you give me the history of what reserves are used for. But my question was, where are they? Do they just sit in an account?
It's in my pocket.
Okay, good, good.
They do sit in an account.
Okay, so is this group eligible to invest in the San Mateo pool?
Oh, do
To
they,
those reserves?
how are they invested? Is that?
Yeah, because I know a lot of cities participate in the county pool. And right now, the county pool is paying close to 3.62%. And if you need your money, you have to wait 45 days. However, the new investment group called Cal Class pays 5.25%. And if you need your money, you can have it within 2 days. So I'm just wondering if the money is just sitting somewhere, why can't we pool some of those investments into investment?
We can
And make
definitely ask
money
our
on it.
fiscal person and get back to you on that.
Yes, I think that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Supervisor? It's my understanding that the county has also moved some of their assets into Cal Class. But yet the county pool only pays 3.62, so they see with the way the interest rates are and how much extra money can be made out there, especially if we have great liquidity. It's just a thought. I didn't know how.
Sure, we look into it.
We'll absolutely look into it.
I'm looking for ways to make money and.
Makes good sense.
Do you see?
Yeah, I can tell that Rolex watch.
It's about my one.
You know, if you could, I think it would be good to include a lawyer in that conversation. Because the budget person may not,
Know whether it can go or not.
yeah.
Makes
The
sense.
reserves do almost every budget cycle, the board says, hey, let's use some reserves to do
To offset.
to offset so
cities
that
have,
there's not
right?
been an increase. So
Yeah.
sometimes, I don't know, it could be 100, 200,000,
Yeah.
whatever it is. But I think that has been utilized too on a normal time.
So
Yeah.
we're not gonna get Glenn's electric trucks,
Oh, you remember that?
huh? You said
Oh,
nobody,
we're trying
nobody
to, we're
did.
trying to get hybrids, and that's been a problem as well.
Well-
So the RFP has gone out a couple times, or RFQ.
Yeah, I think that the idea is that it is in a disasters,
Yeah.
EV doesn't work.
Correct.
And so it's really hybrid or the good old diesel that would just serve that purpose. But I think that to the point of reserve, the spending history has been that made up for the difference, so the member cities don't have to pay. However, we always want to know the 1.3 millions, how does that come about? You know, for most of the cities, 6-month operations. So I would assume that majority of that will covers the 6 month. That's, and I think that to a certain extent, we're trying to figure out, and I think Don was trying to do that because the county has generously loaned us the personnel, the support to make the Emergency Service Council whole. I think that the structure has kind of slightly moved forward to be more of an independent department. And if that is the case, what is the operation? How does that cost? And I think to supervisor point of, there are additional members that need to be hired in order to make the service complete or proficient. I think it needs to be addressed that majority of the membership that goes to, it is to support the personnel. So it can only go up, not down.
Thank you. So can you summarize what
Yeah,
Adam's gonna do?
I can summarize so the request for 2 additional staffing members for alert and warning and community outreach. The inquiry was whether the JPA would be interested in funding those. And the preference and the direction is, let's not fund that through the JPA. Let's see if there's a way to fund that through our Measure K allocations, which are upcoming Tuesday of next week. We've already made some decisions on how those will be allocated, but I think we have sufficient flexibility to roll the allocations for 3 years to cover these 2 positions. So we'll see how it works and go from there.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
Because I was not in the prior discussions. So one of the challenge with the alert is that we have switched back office in terms of the vendors. And I think that is confusing. On the front serving, the majority of the public understand that is SMC alert. The back pocket of the blue side of it is that the PIO or the sergeant on site would be able to just upload the alert. And there's, discrepancy in that, but just as a personnel, that person is in charge. Is that person going to be making sure the overall, the sort of the etiquette or the protocols are going to be observed and the vendors are clear on that? Because I think that the
Yeah.
technical side of it is always
Yeah.
very confusing, to say the least.
Yep.
And it's really hard for a layperson like us to try to promote it, and I'll use Zone Haven as an example, that's just a challenge to trying to make that.
I think you are spot on. That is what this person is going to be doing. They're going to basically take different disparate projects and turn it into a program, including like the tsunami sirens, SMC alert, all of that. And actually have things templated and provide training to each of the cities of what they're supposed to do and provide those templates for them. And ideally do a needs assessment eventually down the line, because what is the need that we're trying to fill? And what is the need that we are actually filling right now? Because I think people get confused when they get different alerts from different government agencies. What is situational awareness type information? What is advisory information? What is actionable information before, during, and after disaster, right? Thinking about those systems and those concepts and setting a process and framework that we all collectively as the op area buy into and actually promote a cohesive alert and warning program, so it's not disparate. That's what I am proposing.
Anything else? Questions?
No, I appreciate your thought process, and I agree with the grant writer. Is if you don't apply, you don't get. And there is no reason or rhyme why you would be the person. I also agree with the supervisor about the manager, coordinator, you just need somebody to hire. I think.
Yeah. Okay, so for the moment, the ball's in your court and Adam's court, and then you'll somehow report back.
Correct.
on What,
At the next Emergency Services Council meeting, we should have,
which is when is that?
April 18th, sir.
April 18th. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Good luck, Adam.
thank you.
Yeah, good luck when you walk in there. He's gonna say, what about the 3 million?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
We have the public comments before we move on.
Really?
We do.
Even though this is just a,
It's a discussion item that's on the regular agenda.
okay, you know the rules better than me. Go ahead.
So, okay, it is now time for general public comment. Members of the public may comment on item 3. Seeing none, we may move on.
Thank you. Item number 4 is a discussion of developing community resiliency centers with generators and required infrastructure. I think.
So this is a contingent request based on the community program person. So I'm just gonna talk about it because that person will be helping create community resilience centers. We've seen this over and over again, whether it's storms, heat events. We continue to get hit hard with not having power, especially to those folks that really can't even charge their batteries, don't have friends that have power as well. So we did a pilot, and we've been working on this in the last 6 months with the libraries. So, our staff actually trained the libraries, worked with the libraries, talked to them about what a community resilience center is. And then we worked with the Red Cross to bring in food and water. And this is some work we've done. So when the storms happened, we activated 8 community resilience centers throughout the county. And almost all the libraries were open, but not all of them had the food and the extra staffing to help people. Because people also want to be comforted when they're in that situation, including things like power strips and small snacks. And PG&E came in and they were able to then provide some blankets as well and some chargers as well. So it's been touted as best practices now, CRCs for disasters. And we piloted this. And we've done the due diligence about looking at each of the libraries, what they have, what they don't have. Some libraries actually have the ability to provide hot food. Some of them have the ability to provide cold food. One of the things most libraries don't have is generators. So I am proposing that we pilot for 2 CRCs to get generators, one in North County, one in South County. And really focus on developing our own community resilience centers. Because these storms and these heat events are not gonna stop.
Really? Okay, discussion? Questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I seem to have read somewhere, every city is different, and subsequently each city has different needs. The Community Resilience Center, again, is an excellent idea, and I'm surprised we haven't done this before. What we need is a needs assessment to determine what each city has, like say a community center. How many community centers do you have? And just to get a lay of the land so that as we move forward, we can determine how many generators is needed. Now, I know in Daly City, in combination with the state, we've identified 1 CRC, and that's the Cow Palace. And basically, it's right on the borderline and it could be shared by both. And that's a prime example. Well, how much generation do we need there? And does it have a kitchen, etc.? So we need to find out from each city where your community center is located. Now, I know we've been working with Peninsula Clean Energy. They have a program to which if the city wants to install solar, that they will help finance it or maybe even finance it. Of course, the finding out what the ROI is later on, the return on investment. This is all has to come together, and I think we should share our resources. And I think that's the purpose of this committee and with the ideas that's come up as based on the agenda, so we all can put it out there. We all have something to add. So just my thoughts. Thank you.
And I want to add that, to tag on to what Glenn has talked about, which is PCE is offering us what they call the concierge service. And they're going to roll it out later in spring. And what they're going to do is that they were going to have trained contractor or trained mechanics that actually will be helping the residents in terms of solar panels and power walls. So that may be something that you may approach them to see if in their concierge services, a part of it to go to the CRC in terms of assessing the libraries for generators. Because I think that they are looking for clean energy and they have either the funding to support that or the sort of the knowledge and experience to be able to help you with that.
And I believe they'll go out and survey the sites, potential
That's what
sites.
they're, yeah,
Right.
that's what they're planning to do, but I don't know,
Okay,
yeah.
Price tag on that is, 300,000. Yeah, what I'd like to see, I think it backs onto what you two were saying, is when we get these things, whether it's a staffing request or this resiliency request, is to have a spreadsheet or data on the bigger picture. That is, if you just read this, it looks like we're adding 2 positions, but no, that's not accurate. We're adding 6 or whatever it is. I'd like to see that information come through, with this kind of staff reports. And then in terms of the libraries, the one in the South County, do you mind saying where that might be?
So we are looking at North Fair Oaks or East Palo Alto. East Palo Alto, we believe, I'm working with the libraries, we believe we can get something from a different grant. So I'm piecemealing some of these.
Isn't the East Palo Alto Library undergoing reconstruction and remodeling?
Correct.
They're building a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on the fundraising committee. If you brought your checkbook, I can talk to you later.
Multitasking.
Not
till 5 o'clock.
See,
Where is in the north, where were you thinking?
we're the, we're,
So north, I really like to ideally put it in Daly City. I know we have the Cow Palace in Daly City, but there is not a county city library in Daly City. We have one. The county libraries has one in Brisbane. The other area that we're looking at is Pacifica. Because the coast gets hit pretty hard.
why wouldn't you put it in the, I don't know, somewhere in between like Daly City and say Burlingame, just to pick a city, somewhere in between there,
Yeah.
since there's one in the south. We could still use the Cow Palace, I think.
The Cow Palace is gonna be for large scale
Right.
events, and we're investing heavily in preparing it for those large scale events.
So that's my point.
So,
Comment.
I think the libraries, I like the library ideas because it's for warming centers. And because of the confusion and the frequency of the PSPS, and the people are relying on their cell phones and their chargers so that they will be able to keep updates on the alerts and also be able to keep up with whatever they have to do. It's been well received, I have to say, and so compliment to you. And I do think that it's a smaller scale as to the big major disasters where we
Right.
need a shelter place for everything else.
so to your point and to your point, sir, the exact description for the community preparedness coordinator was to do a needs assessment.
okay,
And it is contingent that we get that position, that we would move this along. So if we do not get this
Of course.
position, we will not be
Well,
moving it along.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
if I may, can
Yes.
we consider maybe South San Francisco?
yeah.
Because they have a brand new building to
Yeah,
which the voters
point.
had approved. I think it's to the cost of 114 million. It's a combination of parks, recreation, and the library.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, they have a full kitchen there. A full,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and I've been there, we've been there, and it's an excellent point. For Dr. Schroeding, I just remembered I had sent you an email, and this is to validate why we need a grant writer. February 16th was the deadline. And I sent it to you and there has been no response.
For the local hazard mitigation plan?
She called it right on.
The hazard mitigation grant,
So, sir, we are applying for that grant.
okay?
The person that is working on it, it's for 375K. There's gonna be a 25% match that we at the county have to do. I've already sent out letters to all the cities.
Say that to Adam.
To actually give us letters of support for that. So thank you for sending that. I'm sorry, I thought I responded to that. But thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we have been working diligently on that.
The project is $150,000 for a single jurisdiction, $250,000 for a multi-jurisdiction, and you just quoted, was it 325?
375 is what we're asking for.
I was being conservative. I know you said 375. I want to say thank you so much. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking
Yeah.
that on.
So
We need a grant writer. Okay.
thank you, sir.
All right, we'll move on now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Former mayor.
Public comment?
I want to say one thing
Oh,
before you take public comment. My wife has been a librarian for a very long time. And she's been threatened at knife point by unsheltered folks. She's dealt with all kinds of things that nobody should have to deal with in a public building. And so with these resiliency centers, I'm concerned about, security of the assets of the library and the personnel of the library, because I know she works in Redwood City, by the way. That some of it's just horrid. It's the only way I can say it. So I guess what I would say is there a way to think about some security in all this when we do these programs? That's all I have to say about that. Just concerned about.
Excellent point.
We will definitely look at that.
Can I just chime in with one other thing? I'm a big fan of these and I think they were really successful during the last storms. They rolled out like
Mhm.
this and
Yes.
we've talked to, and this just goes on the grant writing thing. We've also talked to PG&E about, because typically they set up these kind of centers, about them making some sort of contribution in terms of outfitting these centers with backup generators and things. They're often the cause of why people need to go there. So they should be contributing to the remedy. So I think they saw that it worked really well here during the last storms and have taken this idea out as a model to the rest of California. So I think we're on the right track. As long as we can take into account those security concerns and other concerns.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do we do on the South Coast for these resiliency centers? Is there anything over
We use Pescadero High School for Pescadero. It had a generator that failed. We've bought them a new generator. But in the future, we're going to be building the Pescadero Fire Station on the same campus as the high school. And we want to build in space so that people know that that's where they go. If they're over in the South County, they head to the fire station. There's a community room. There's assets and materials there for them to charge their phone and stuff like that. So that's part of the design that's being developed currently.
And they used the La Honda fire station in La Honda the last time.
Then I was gonna say, La Honda, the fire chief, and he said they were out like several days. He has a generator. But when they get hit, they get hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also like to, have this memorialized somewhere. I find that redundancy is a good word for when it comes to emergency preparedness, but by the same token, there's a lapse of, people transition in and out, and then somehow you find a generator in the past and it's no longer used, and how did it get there, and all these other. So there are good ideas in the past. There were good ideas in the past, but it was not kept up. And so, with this good idea now, capture it and then have it somewhere that we will be able to continue it and improve upon it. I think that's it.
We have a hot idea parking lot that we keep all of our good ideas in. And battles worth fighting as well.
Are these generators like? I'm assuming they need a cement slab and they're big. They're not like the one I have in my garage.
Can I, since we're on the subject about emergency power, generators, and I'm well aware of the generators and how they may contribute, not that it'll be used all the time, but contribute to greenhouse gases. We should work with PCE, determine if a place is eligible for solar. If it is, then we should consider a power wall. And the power wall is basically a backup battery. During the day, it charges those batteries, and should anything hit, it'll automatically kick in to the power wall and provide the power. If nothing happens, then the power wall will always be there. So it might be an investment, so just a thought.
I love that idea. I think it's a very good long-term strategy, and I'm invested in looking into it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
No, I like you, sir.
You have to be on top of the game.
Okay, is that it for that one? Public
Yes, sir,
comment?
public comment.
Mhm.
It is now time for public comment. Members of the public may comment on item 4. Seeing none, we may move on.
Something wrong with that. Okay, so now we go to item 5, which is the review and discussion of recommended budget. Does anybody need a copy?
I'd like to introduce Michael Reed, who is from the CEO's office.
We will hold it against you.
Any budgetary questions, he will be answering.
I know.
We just really want to thank Michael for being here.
So thank you to Rose and Rudy for putting together the PowerPoint you have in front of you. This includes a couple of the discussion items that I believe you talked about earlier in your agenda. So again, this is a draft. This can be changed by the subcommittee to reflect your desires and decisions made in this meeting before forwarding to the board's or the subcommittee's recommendation to the general JPA. The second page here, this is breaking down the expenditures this year. And what we've done for prior requests is the question was asked, what is the ESCJPA getting for the money? What are the cities getting for the money that they contribute? These second and third slides are broken down to illustrate where is the money being spent. And I can walk through these individually. For the most part, these are costs that have, around a 3% increase, if any, each year. A lot of those increases are due to salary and labor increases in service charge departments that would be doing some of the work based on current MOU and bargaining agreements. The first page, the expenditures, this talks about the DGM side. These are where the costs are. Service charge departments, this is our IT, our HR, DPW, their charges are here at 68,000 and change. There is a warehouse lease that you can have for 85K. Management and admin support. So this is Shrudi's time. This is Rose's time to support this org. This is one of 2 orgs within the Department of Emergency Management. So this is sort of compensating them for their time and expertise in this area. The fire battalion chief contract is here. This is for 240K. This is a contract, I think that it's in its 2nd year. Is it the 1st year? So this is a renegotiated one. DEM office space. So DEM office space, this is essentially the majority of the 1st floor. So this is DEM's offices plus the ESC, or what we call the emergency operating center, the EOC downstairs. That's the space of that main floor and the breakout rooms on the side. Next is services and supplies. Then the current 4 positions. Let me go into services and supplies real quick here. Because in services and supplies, there is a change this year that we'll get into a little bit more detail. This is higher this year than last year. So one of the key changes that occurs in this budget, as you'll see a little later on compared to last year, is that last year we had a year that I think was appreciated by the cities where we reduced the overall ESC JPA budget tune of $550,000 due to 2 things. The costs for radios were removed. That was about $400,000. We also had a contract that in the previous year, I think it might have been a grant supported contract, but it was in the tune of about $175,000. That contract was. So the overall cost the cities had to pay last year went down quite a bit. You'll see in the following pages. This year, the big change is that we're adding 4 contracts in. And we'll talk about those a little bit later. So the services and supplies has increased by about $936,000. It seems like a large amount. We'll talk about what those contracts are, how it benefits both incorporated and unincorporated same good. Also here, the 4 permanent positions. You all have discussed, I'm probably for missing it, but the DEM staffing. I asked Rose to break out the 2 requested or proposed requested positions as easily. So you can compare the 2 different ones. So the amount you see on your left-hand side, the 2.6 million, that is incorporated, that has the proposed positions within this as well. So I just want to make that clear. We kind of wrestled back and forth. How can we make this easy for you to understand as far as like, do you want to do the positions? You know, what do you want to do with the generators? Those kind of things. So, but this is the DEM expenditures. Before I move on, does anyone have any questions?
Yep.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm curious about if you discussed this budgeting approach at a high level with the chief financial officer. And I'm curious about his thoughts on the way this is, captured, presented, shared, et cetera, et cetera. Is Robert Mankia, does he have a better idea on how to do this budgeting? Basically, is the question. Because right now it's, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure I can respond directly with the, are you talking about with the inclusion of these positions? in
Well, I was
advance?
talking about in general, there are 2 budgets, it looks like to me.
Oh. Is there a way to not have 2 budgets?
Exactly. And still have the board members get the information they need and appropriate breakouts and everything, but I'm curious, maybe you've talked about this approach.
I have not talked to Robert about this trip. You're correct, though, that there is the regular budget that we would normally present to you. Then there are what you would consider the recommended level budget requests like we would normally do before, where we're going to you and saying, thank you for the current level budget money. We're asking you for these additional expenditures and positions and stuff like that. So what we could do, if you wish, is to really just focus on the budget as it stands, what the normal operating costs would be, and then separate out the asks, if that would be a simpler approach.
Well, it's up to my colleagues here, but I would just ask you to talk to Robert and Key about it, see what his ideas are.
Sure.
Looking at it incorrectly or something. It seems like there should be, anyway.
Okay.
One budget.
Yeah, so one of the question is that, every year when the new members from the Emergency Service Council, they would always inevitably ask about the hazmat contract. And there's vast discussions regarding why can we embed them in the each fire departments or fire districts for that matters. And the discussion is always, it's a specialized trained services and it makes sense to be embedded. I think that right now it's in what, Consolidated? And they have a train groups and so that, you know, like the fire, if something arise, they don't have to call it out from each individual departments, but rather that they have the team ready on set and go. So it's economical and it's specific, and needs to be addressed that way. And I think that will be helpful when you do the presentation to purposes by saying that, because I don't think that everybody has that kind of information. And so inevitably, there's going to be questions raised regarding why the contract is separated. But every city is paying to it, because it's economical for us to pay into a contract and then have that, you know, service all the entire county.
And I just, the warehouse lease for 85,000. Yeah, I know what a warehouse is for, but I mean.
What is being stored?
There you go.
PPE equipment. I hope it's not bad.
No, that was a county joke.
That's in a different word.
Yes, sir.
So there's a lot of supplies that would be used during mass casualty event, or like, what do you call it? Like mass care event.
Can I take a tour of that warehouse? You wanna go?
Sure.
Anybody else want-
Maybe we'll find something we like.
Yeah.
We'd love to have a field trip.
That's great
Yes.
for you. Yeah, at your convenience, no rush. I'd just like to see what that is. Where is that warehouse, by the way?
There's one in San Jose and there is one in San Leandro. We couldn't get,
I was gonna say, like, that doesn't sound good. Especially during commute time.
Wait.
so
Is that because of earthquake safety? Fault zones?
that's part of the reason. The other part of the reason is it's too expensive
Here?
to, because a lot of the warehouses that were near South San Francisco have been bought out and they actually are using, they're gonna use that space for biotech industry.
I don't know, Rico, now that Rico said that, it strikes me like I was just playing the movie of the big earthquake and the San Mateo Bridge going down, right? And all of our all of our equipment is over in the warehouse at San Leandro. The problem is we can't get there. Anyway.
You can take
That-
880.
That's why we have
Yeah.
drones.
That's why we have what?
Drones, you know, all this development of the
Okay,
drones
okay.
to drop at the remote area to
There are different
put out the
different
fire.
resource caches here on this side and that we can call on, like pots and emergency supply
Trailers.
trailers and stuff. So some of that, I
Any, like at the county fairgrounds, we don't have any.
think we have.
Place
We're
within-
building out both Cow Palace and the county fairgrounds as well. So this is in addition to that. Because if you think about supplies you need for immediate, like the first 12 hours, those are different supplies than you need for the next 24 to 72 hours than they are for supplies that you may need after 72 hours. Right? Because maybe you just need chairs for the first 12 hours.
And I'll just say that we have been looking, we've done a study to build a warehouse locally. We did a study.
Oh, I've got an idea.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
okay.
Hurry, though, I'll forget.
I'll be really quick. We did a study to build one locally and we've actually, I've taken tours of some in the area to see if we could get a warehouse. It's so expensive that it becomes prohibitive. We're talking like $10 million that it doesn't make sense. So,
What about using one or two hangars that you're gonna buy at the San Carlos Airport that are empty?
okay, good idea. We'll take a look at that.
You write that down.
Yes, sir.
It's a good idea. Is
I'm
that
very busy at.
a possibility in all seriousness, or?
Well, there's another study that we've done on combining all the courtyards just outside the San Carlos Airport, and that might be a location for a warehouse, so that's also been discussed. I have to look into whether or not it's feasible to do it at the airport in those spaces, but I think it's worth looking into.
Yeah, okay, that would be, seems like that would be a good spot. Anyway,
Is the airport on solid ground?
I think we gotta look into all these things just to make sure it's okay, but
Yeah.
with everything, it takes time to explore the feasibility.
how much time is that? I mean.
I probably-
It's not as simple as you walking over to look at the hangar and going, yeah, well, that's pretty big, we could put all of our stuff in. Not like that easy.
I think that we have to look at it and you have to understand which of the things need control conditions and can that space,
Mhm.
is it conditionable and stuff like that. So I don't know the condition of those hangars.
Yeah.
Some of them are pretty old.
Yeah, and so, but it is, yeah, I didn't mean to imply that it's a really lengthy process to
Okay.
at least get an idea.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yep.
Sorry, Michael.
It's okay. Is it okay to move on?
Yes, sir.
So, following your comment, talk to Robert, some ideas, there's a better way to talk about what is our current budget versus new asks, separate those out. I think maybe put the new asks at the back. If this board is in favor of them, and I think that's kind of what the discussion is today, is what is the subcommittee really recommending or being willing to support of the asks? And, that's what we'll go into this one.
If I may, thank you for that, because I've already calculated some numbers on the side, and basically, I guess you would term that as a variance. And, and the questions that came up,
What page are you on?
Gotten the good part. You wanna skip to that page?
since you're on the topic of, the asks, and then when folks on, the committee would say, well, why the increase? Then we can address those, additional staffing needs, et cetera, but at least have powerful variances and difference, then we can go into the asks.
You
That's a
you
great
remember
suggestion.
at a past meeting, he said, he gave us a clue. He said he always looks to the variance column first. That's where he goes to first, right? Remember?
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
so
look at
that's a
it, we
good-
look at the
that's-
variance
yeah,
first,
that's-
yeah.
I like that.
All right,
Sorry.
so I'm gonna, do you want me to discuss that page or we can come back? So, I'll go through the rest of this really quickly. In my authority time. That third page is environmental health, hazardous materials response program. And services and supplies for that EH program, personnel related costs. So they do not have an assigned position, but this is just for staff time that is coded to this project. The San Mateo Consolidated Fire Hazmat contract. County alerting and technology, 52.
What is the $1 million from environmental health?
So this is the total of the yellow, I guess you call it beige, and those are those three combined. If I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh, it's not just in Bias. It's all three.
That's correct. The next page, this is to give you.
Next slide.
This is to give you perspective, sort of a reference. Normal operating, it's about 3.1, 3.2. We've been pretty consistent. A lot of that is due to, we really have minimal changes in terms of staffing. That's about a 3% change year over year. That's really the majority of the cost. So it's a relatively stable budget. Last year, again, as I mentioned earlier, there was a huge change where ISD removed radio charges. We haven't got a clear answer from them why that charge was included in the first place. When OES became DEM and moved out of sheriff. It's our belief that the sheriff might have,
Siphoned off money.
gave us those charges and got themselves a deal. So
Yeah.
that's been rectified. as of last year.
Makes
That's
sense.
been rectified.
Oh,
Um,
good.
and so the radio charge is removed. So that and the contract that we've had before, we had a real big reduction, which the cities liked. This year, we decided to take it all back. If you approve the two positions, this 4 million that you see up top, this is including the two proposed positions. It's including the increase in the contracts, which we'll get to in just a minute. So
Adam's writing the check for the two positions.
exactly. So I think recognizing your comment, Supervisor, it might be helpful to have a column that basically says, this is what the subcommittee, take out the proposed positions out of this and have maybe what are the normal costs would be, and what the above and beyond cost.
How many departments do you have in your portfolio?
It's starting to go to 4.
Okay.
Anyway,
I just had a quick question
Yeah.
for you, based on that. Does this department provide, I forgot what it used to be, quarterly, no, quarter pay period, no. Every so often, departments had to turn in a financial plan comparing allocations to percentage of the year elapsed compared to how much money they've spent. Does this department do that?
it does. It does a mid-year report.
And-
That's done about mid-June, which looks at the first 6 months of the year.
So we had that, I've forgotten about it, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
And then that.
And then you only do it that one time.
No, we do it twice actually, because we do at year end, we do a roundup of what was actually spent versus unspent. Okay. Those documents can be.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, yeah, okay, that sounds good.
So I'm trying to understand this. For 23-24, the budget dropped to 2.6, and that's due to the removal of the 550,000 on the radio charges
And contract.
and contract.
So
Okay.
contract about 175,000. I'm not sure. Kathy Pape would know best. I think it was related to a grant.
Okay, so now we're moving back to the new proposed, which is 4.4
Yes.
mil. And so it's not just adding the 900 to the existing contract.
That's correct.
There is
and-
more.
Yes, there is a lot more under the hood. And so this is the document that is not the greatest, but it's been created for auditing purposes. So that the cities can take this back to their auditing staff, fiscal staff, they can review it, make sure they're comfortable with the charges that are being presented. And also for detail for putting together your own fiscal 24-25 budget for the inclusion of the costs that the cities would bear. This gets into a lot of the detail that can't be included in a simple presentation. This is allow you to dig into details that you'd be more interested in, and breaks it down at a more granular level. The charges that we're talking about, the increases, if folks are interested, why don't we just dive into that? Because most of the budget's not really materially changes, with the exception of the 4 contracts and the exception of the 2 positions.
Like, is there a way to, like, I still feel like, all due respect to everybody and their time, but I feel like I look at this and I go, proposed 2 positions. It's really not proposed 2 positions. It's really some other number like 6, if I'm not mistaken.
Out of this budget, it would actually completely get Xed. If Adam is gonna take money out of the Measure K funds, so that entire 2 columns would go away.
Yeah, I guess in the future, I'm just wanting accurate information in one source that ties across puts. So we're not talking about 2 positions here and 4 positions over here.
That's what you're talking about, have 2 different budgets and
Yeah,
somehow
that's right.
consolidate them into one. It's just for. This group controls one of the budgets, but it should have visibility into the
I
total.
want to control all budgets.
Yes, I
It's
understand that.
Yeah, I think that if the expectation is for this subcommittee to make a recommendations, we need to have a clear view of what the two
Both sides.
budgets are and how they are playing into
So,
it.
if you wish, you can talk about the first page.
Mhm.
So what you see here on this top one is this is the overall summary of sources. The column called fiscal year 24-25 total program costs. This is your budget without those proposed two positions. So the green is showing you what your the proposed program cost would look like if you had those positions. The change column in green, you can see at the subtotal breaks out what would the city's portion of this be. It's 169, basically, let's say $170,000. And then the change column also marks out the difference that it would cost your city if you added those two positions. So this was trying to get at what are those position costs? What does it look like if you added it to the regular budget? Again, the regular budget right here is this middle column. And so that's without the two positions. It is inclusive of this.
Michael,
page.
the pages that you're pointing at is page one, right?
Yes, the very first one, page one. This entire page, I mean, if you want to talk about it just in general, this is talking about your sources. So the cities pay in, this is the city's amount, in that middle column, 1.5 million and change. Down here is the county's the county's amount, which is 1.46 and change. The question has been asked in the past, why is there a difference? Why isn't this, equal, right? And so part of that is paying into the state mandated services. The county pays in 2,500. Each city pays in 2,500. You can see here the countywide alerting technology. There's the second column from it's called countywide alerting technology. So that's where the difference comes from. So that's been asked in the past. Why is there a difference why isn't this a 50-50 split with the county? So that is.
Well,
that's the
it
difference.
is almost 50-50, and it just,
It's pretty close.
yeah, it is pretty
So
close.
elections come up. So-
And I think the reminder is that without the county, the cities is not able to do this. And I think that needs to be reminded, because county is kicking 50% of it. And the cities are doing the 50% of it. Collectively 20 jurisdictions. And then the calculation of the emergency services there's a tricky formula of populations or something.
Yes, it's
And I
done
have
by
to say
your
that
population roll.
Yeah, and I have to say that every year we ask, well, with the census, is there reflections of changes? And it hasn't been done, right? It hasn't been really done with the population increase in some of the cities, such as Daly City. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, if the board would like more detail on how that's calculated, it can certainly provide it. But that does change every year. The assessment roll data, the population data, so we get that from the California Department of Finance. So it's a retrospective look back at the year prior, right? So you're.
So
looking
you
at
do
last year's
adjust
data.
it accordingly.
Every year is adjusted.
Okay,
Now, because of San Mateo County being what it is, ingress and egress, it doesn't really change a whole lot. So it kind of balances out. So that's probably why you don't see like material changes, but there are slight ones. We can obviously provide you the information to your fiscal staff if they wish to see it.
thank you.
Along those same lines, if I may, fiscal year 2024 through 2025 column, percent of total. May I ask why Redwood City is paying so much? 11.6%,
Yes.
and San Mateo is paying 13.16%. And I guess this is towards Chung's question. I see Coma's 0.4%. Now, is this based on population?
Yes,
It is. That's a big difference,
they
though.
have only 1,000 people,
I mean,
less than 1,000 people.
So the,
Mhm. Okay, it's based on population.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
so
really
the-
enough
for
for me.
example, the most recent population data
Correct.
we have, it's,
It's good to be alive.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
yeah, you know, like Daly City, there is like probably the heaviest load, they and San Mateo are the highest population.
Got it.
Daly City is about 102,000. San Mateo is 103,000,
Got
Redwood
it.
City, 81,000.
All right, population.
So this is cost based on population.
Thank
the
you.
Cost of the folks that we would serve.
Okay.
And hopefully that's commensurate with the tax revenue brought in by those cities for those.
Thank you.
The other things just keep in mind is that, SFO also contributes. We have this averaged at $410,000 a year. That's our estimate. It may vary here and there, right? It's not in the exact science. This represents what we used to pull out each year from the trust fund. So we used to come to you and request permission to transfer that amount from the trust fund. SFO used to send it directly to the trust fund, and then we get your permission to move it in. Robert Mankia's direction was, let's just skip the middleman, bring the revenue directly into the ESC JPA budget. If you have a special request, like you're going to buy fixed assets like generators, you can go to the trust fund and make a recommendation that you draw money from there to purchase said fixed asset, whether that's a generator or a wind farm, whatever it is that you wanted to put in, you can use that trust fund money that's there for one-time purposes. We also have grant revenues that we bring in. Rose and Kathy can probably speak a little bit to that. This year, it's an estimate of 322,000. So that's a combined 732,000 in additional revenue that we're bringing in on top of what cities provide, on top of what the county provides. The total budget for this year without the positions is 3.7 million. With the positions, it's 4.0 million and change. So again, this breaks out the cost of those two positions as $339,000 and change, almost 340. And that's in this little green column here, to give you a perspective of which the county would do half, cities would do half. It sounds like you guys have had a discussion already on this, so I'm not going to go into any further there, but I would look to your direction on what you wish to include or not. Moving on, again, ignoring or not going back to the position, but going to the contract. The contracts has
Next slide.
increased this year. We have 4 contracts that DEM is looking to include in the ESC JPA. They're listed out here. The total cost is $936,000 change. They're broken out here into 4 different contracts. I don't know, Shruti, if you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it.
What
So-
those mean and what the benefit is.
So it's the next year or so, or it's gonna be all about all hazards evacuation planning, and this is a new concept. We've never done all hazards for all the cities, so looking at that holistic view. So I believe you all approved the all hazard evacuation plan and taking the money out a few meetings before I was present.
The ladders, right?
No, this is not the Latris. That is coming out of the DEM budget separately.
Oh, okay.
So that is coming out of the ESC budget, 348K. The vegetation management is also about evacuation planning, 334K, but that is fully grant funded. So it's 380 that we're getting, and some of it is going in admin costs. So again, no effect to you all at the city level, as it's fully funded. We're getting a subject matter expert and a project manager to do the all hazards evacuation planning. That is 144K. 50% of that is coming from the EMPG grant. And then the other 50% is coming from the ESC funding. So that's 25% coming from the cities, 25 coming from the counties. And then we are doing a disaster service worker training, and 50% of that is coming from an EMPG grant. And that training will be available. We're gonna be working with all the emergency managers, and that training will be available for you to brand yourself for your disaster service workers for their training. And so this is basic disaster service worker training. We'll also have, you know, COOP 101, EOC 101, things that you can basically take and do your own.
So, yeah. So sorry. This is kind of confusing because we have, the reason that we have the 24-25 proposed budget is 4 mil. We have added 4 contract and 2 positions. That's why it's been reiterated. But in Shruti's presentations, the vegetation has been fully funded with the 380,000. Then the AHEP also 50% is being funded by grant. And then the disaster service worker training is also 50% by the grants. Well, on this chart,
Yeah, I'm
so
starting to look at that.
332.
Yeah, that's what I'm, that's what I'm
So
gonna ask Ruth,
where's the
so,
number?
Yeah,
This, I mean, based on what she said, this is more than,
yeah,
The
it sounds like we're
330
missing some
22.
revenue
right?
grants.
So that needs to
So-
be reflected.
I wonder if the 380 was.
Let's talk offline, cause I think we need to make some, cause I think some revenue is missing from this,
Okay.
now that I hear you.
You
talking
didn't
about that.
capture it.
Yeah, I'm thinking that,
And then there's also, there's also an increase in the San Mateo Consolidated Fire Hazmat contract. And that is, that was negotiated last year,
Right.
as well. So, though, that's what the expenditure increase looks like.
So when you said that, Michael, when you said that on this green chart, you say that this 339,000 is 2 positions, it's not.
so here's what I would say, is like, let's ignore that call. I
Okay.
think that we need to, DEM and I need to talk about the grant funding side of this, because I'm seeing some revenue or hearing about some revenue that I haven't taken into account in the budget here.
So you
this
found
needs
money.
to be,
You just, yeah, I was just told we had a lot more money. So I think what we need to do is to find out what the details are on those grants, what's actually coming in. Because as Shriti said, those grants will offset these expenses.
Yeah.
So I think that when we look at the column that you talked about here, the city's portion,
yes,
that is going to decrease now.
yes.
So, with that new.
So probably have to capture.
Yeah, so I think,
Okay.
I mean, based on what I'm seeing here, is that I had 322,000 as grants.
Right,
And what we do in the budget is that acts as like a credit against the expenditure, right? So that means that it drops the city's cost, the county's cost. So what we can do is come back, with that revenue added in to provide a clear picture.
yeah, that'd be helpful.
My apologies.
Where did that leave us?
It leaves us more in the black than in the red.
No, and that's.
I think the next step is that once you have those numbers updated, you'll send,
Yes.
right, with everybody, so they'll have the updated number.
You know, one thing that, we said with newer folks too, there's always the question of the DM office space. And it's like, okay, this is a new building, was paid for, with Measure K.
Yes,
And in essence, but then we're being charged.
Yes.
So I think there needs to be some, I mean, sometimes we call it what, administrative, charges in a city budget. But I mean, I think that's important to help understand, because I think people look at and go, why, you know. Because if it's a big room downstairs, they were having a great, retirement party. But,
Doesn't look good, yeah.
Yeah.
From the city perspective.
Well, maybe we should cancel the Council of Cities party tomorrow night.
No, actually, well, actually Supervisor, I think that that's more the reasons why to have that tour.
Absolutely.
We're all looking forward to it, to have the opportunity to
No, I'm just.
understand.
Warren's having fun.
No, he said.
No, and it's not about it, because I think it's great that it was a nice time, and the person who's retiring after 40 years deserves. But I'm just saying that sometimes when, they're gonna say, well, the taxpayers paid for this, but why are we being billed? So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, so the rent or facilities charge, as we like to call it, that's being charged to you by Department of Public Works. That is, I mean, that's split with county and city, so that charge in itself is $383,000, of which the cities cover $191,000, county covers the rest. So the purpose of that is that the space is empty most of the time. I mean, that's generally what happens, but what we're doing is the space is always available for when we have like the winter storm emergencies, or we have the COVID that we ran that EOC basically straight for how many months? 16 months or something. It was crazy. So, that's what it's essentially there for, but, and it's, I guess it's probably the whole idea of that space is designed to serve the entirety of San Mateo County, not just serve the entirety of all citizens.
I think that, first of all, changing the name from rent to facility would be helpful. The other is to articulate that the command centers, when you establish during a disaster, it's benefiting for the entire county. And I think that would help us visualize it, because each city all has a instant command centers, when something happened locally.
Yes.
But, when the weather or the fire or the flood that affected the entire county, that is something to need to be addressed, and is handled at the county level and then trickle down to the local level. And I think that would be helpful for us to understand that.
That's a good point. Thank you.
I have a really crabby old man question.
Welcome in, maybe.
So every time I'm downstairs, it's for, like, there was a job fair there for veterans recently that I spoke at. And then there's this event and that event held down in that space. So it struck me as we were talking about the rent, the facilities charges for this building. Is there a way, and I know this makes your life miserable, I'm sure, but the times that the EOC is at and everybody is in there for emergency purposes is a very limited amount of time. And yet we're paying rent all year long. And we're not even using it. This being used as a party room. As it was today. Not that there's something wrong with that.
No, not at all.
But I'm just saying, is there a way to look at the facilities charges so that every department shares in that cost? I don't know. It doesn't seem right that that DEM is being charged the rent for the whole facility when basically the bottom floor is used a few times a year for a longer period of times, I grant you, but then in between times, there's always something going on there. It's become a meeting room. For
Yes.
departments.
Yeah.
One of the, I don't mean to dig a hole for the county here, but
That's okay.
one of the things that might be considered, so the way the sheriff had always run this, it was a 50-50 split on everything. So if the cities say, hey, we'd like to talk about this, you can always negotiate a change from 50-50, right? If you guys said, hey, look, that's only being used maybe 10% of the year, 25% of the year at max. Can we renegotiate that with you where county covers 75% of it? And then we take that 25% additional, and that's what we parse out to other departments, for example. So that would be potentially more fair if the cities wanted to.
For that particular square footage, that
Yeah.
gets
Yeah.
multi-purpose.
DEM will always be on the hook for it. But whether it has to, but that doesn't mean that all of the charges have to be solely.
Yeah,
It's basically the keeper of the space.
I have to say that, that line item of a rent that showed up at the ESC, it doesn't sit well with us, because it is a big item. And all of a sudden, this rock, it's wonderful and it's, important. But it doesn't really speak to the city in terms of representation. So to the supervisory comments that if we're looking at the maintenance costs of this center and how it's going to be, trickling down, we need to take a serious look at it. And to say, to what percentage is the ESC is going to be utilizing it.
It's maybe an unfair comparison, but in some ways, the EOC space is like a fire engine. So if you know the fire guys, 95% of their time is spent maintaining the engine, replacing widgets, polishing it, washing it, making sure it runs, the siren runs. Their whole day is spent going through checklists, making sure that that engine's ready to go. 5% of the day that engine's used. But your city is on the hook for the whole part of it, right? So again, if you thought about that as like the EOC space down there, like we're talking about the maintenance, we have to pay for the virtual EOC. We have to pay IT to make sure that that's all ready to go for you at a moment's notice. So the facilities charge, as we'd like to call it, I think it's up for debate, however you guys want to view it. I think it's not my place to say, but if that's how the ESCJPA wants to decide it, those are negotiable things, I guess. So,
I have to say that, and I didn't mean to take up your time. The 50-50%, I think is understandable for the cities to, and it is actually, at least in my long-term view, and I don't, I'm not speaking for Glenn or Rika, that I see the advantage of the JPA for the cities, us being a smaller city. That being said, I still think that, the negotiation, it doesn't have to be a 25-75 kind of a discussions because it cloud out the others, right? It opens up the floodgate for others to say, well, wait, then we're talking about the population, then we're talking about the percentage of the cities versus the county. But I do think that, in the space of the emergency service, in addition to all the, way that the downstairs or the facility being utilized, that it could be carved out to be a certain percentage and that the county and the cities share half and half on that space or that percentage, rather than looking at the overall. So there are many ways to slice it, but, to try to keep it less confusing.
I think we probably can land on something where we take that space that's regularly used. Because it's not all the space that's part of the facilities maintenance, but that portion, that square footage that's regularly used by county for county events and whatnot, because it is heavily used by county events. And come up with some sort of apportionment that's a little bit different than 50-50. So I think that's not gonna be a tremendous cost, honestly. It's not gonna move the needle much, but if it's an issue that feels a little odd to people, let's try to correct it so that we're all on the same page.
Mike's gonna really like you tomorrow.
Well, we gotta think long-term, right? I mean,
He's coming back tonight late on an airplane, so I'm sure he's gonna be in a good mood the first thing in the morning. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. What else?
just to finish this up, I think what we can do is, we'll meet on the side, update the revenue numbers that we're talking about today related to the 4 contracts. I would anticipate with that additional revenue added, the city's costs will come down. The budget will stay what it is. But I think what you'll see is that the sources will go up, the expenditures for both county and cities will go down commensurately. And then following up on supervisor's comments, What is the will of the group?
They want us to find a way to pay for the two positions through Measure K.
Okay.
So there'll be some,
So the follow-up budget will remove the two position discussion. What about the generator?
I think that needs to be baked more.
Okay. Discussed more?
I don't know, this, I just took from the discussion that people wanted a little bit more information before that.
They want a spreadsheet on where these things
Allocated.
are, what the community resources are, how it all fits together.
And I
Yeah,
think
'cause-
that, it's also important to remember that this could be a trust fund, funded purchase if it's agreed to.
May I make a proposal, Chair?
Of course.
I think with the two, we can, have that two position discussion. Once we get one of the positions on board, the community, outreach person, that person can do that needs assessment and actually come back to this board again with the suggestion of where their recommendations are based on data. And then we can move that along, maybe not this ESC meeting in April, but maybe in the June meeting. If we do have that person on board.
I don't
I
know.
think that makes sense.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Perfect.
So we'll follow up with revising.
Good, we'll move to item 6. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah. the public comment.
Yes, we can.
It is now time for general public comment. Members of the public make this comment on item number 5. Seeing none.
Oh, yes, but, okay. Now we're on item 6, members report. Start over here with the vice chair. Any report, sir?
I have no report, but I do want to thank everyone, the EM team for your efforts in being here and taking care of us all going through all this. Thank you.
You know,
I want to say thank you very much about the presentations. That's by far is it really, there's some clarity to the budget and it was very helpful. So really appreciate it. And I do appreciate the forward thinkings regarding the positions and how they're being utilized. So.
Yep, thank you. Thank you. Well, then. Does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn? Okay, no objection, we are adjourned 17:38. You did that.